Welcome to All About the Experiences. Today is my 20th episode. I hope that you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know that I did. And despite all that's going on globally, we have so much to be thankful for. Personally, I'm thankful for each of you. You all inspire me to continue to follow my dreams and do it one experience at a time. Through these experiences, I continue to grow and connect with people who provide me with just a greater insight of not only myself, but things that are going on around me. And while I'm doing that, I'm forming relationships, and I just appreciate you all supporting me on this journey. Well, today's guest and I started a journey of friendship, sisterhood, and mentorship well over 8 years ago. I had the honor of having her as my inaugural guest, and today she's back with some exciting news. Dr. Pamela Hardy-Shepard is a motivational keynote speaker, author, researcher, consultant, experience leader, life coach, professor, and dear friend to me. She holds a doctorate of philosophy in human services, specialization in management of nonprofits from Capella University. She also earned her Master of Public Health with an emphasis in maternal and child health from San Diego State University, and a Master of Business Administration with a specialization in marketing from National University. She completed her undergraduate work at San Diego State University with a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Arts and Sciences in Psychology. Without further delay, I am pleased to welcome Dr. Pamela Hardy-Shepard back as this week's featured guest. Welcome to All About the Experiences, Pamela. It is so good to have you back on the platform.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Oh my goodness. I am so pleased to be here and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, certainly. I have to tell you, you helped me kick off All About the Experiences Living Without Limits. And it was such a pleasure to have you not only support me, but share so much of yourself. And I know I tease, but anybody that knows me knows I talk about you all the time and I share different Pamela isms. And I am just so excited that you have graced us again with coming on, and you have some pretty exciting news to share with us. So I don't want to delay this. I want to hop right on into it. And I don't know if you all can see this, but on Pamela's virtual background, she has a book that says, What She Didn't Tell You. Pamela, tell us what this is all about.
Oh my goodness. I am so excited to share this information with you. It was a quest, and it was actually, it had taken me 2.5 years to pull this together, but really the emphasis of why I did what I did is because I'm a curious person. I wanted to know why some women excel and learn how to navigate life really well, and how sometimes others have many obstacles and they may fail, but they get back up and then they're successful. I wanted to know, what was the path? How did it start? Where did it come from? Why are some women just so resilient and others may not be so resilient? And if we could tell their stories, maybe somebody could find themselves in this book and see that it is not how we start out, but it's how we finish.
Mm.
So I was able to interview women on a one-to-one basis, and I was really grateful to be able to do that and for women to share their stories. I also did a survey to be able to capture from another perspective and give women the opportunity if they did not want a one-to-one. And then I had what we call a sip and gab. And this was this was so much fun. This is where we had a little wine, sipped a little wine, ate a little food, and sisters came together and they just talked. Now, most of the women I did not know. They came in. I asked people to invite maybe someone else, and they did. And the reason why I did that, and I have to be very transparent, is because when I ask questions about sex, most women kind of they didn't really want to answer those questions. So I went and specifically asked Gen Xers to have that conversation with me. And boy, did they have that conversation with me.
I bet those
So
were really intense conversations, but you learn a lot.
I did. I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I this is not to put down any traditionalist. I am a baby boomer. Um, what we learned is that women moving into womanhood, we'll say young women, they are not equipped. We are not equipped by our mothers. Our mothers told us the function of the body, and sometimes they didn't. They would tell us the function, but they would not tell us about pleasure, how to please yourself, how to have the confidence. If you're pushing me to get married, what are my expectations in the bedroom and as a wife? Just not I need to clean the house and do the dishes and iron the clothes and do all those functions. But what about our love life? How do we do that? Where do I learn that from? So if mommy or auntie or grandma or church isn't teaching us, where do we learn? And so I would ask those questions, and we got a myriad of answers. It is just incredible, the transparency. And I mean transparency. It was gut wrenching, the things that women said.
Let me ask you, let's go back a little bit just to even kind of lay the groundwork of how you even decided to start with this subject matter, because it's definitely needed. And I feel completely inspired by it, because you're absolutely correct. In my own experience, my mom was a family nurse practitioner. So we did have very pointed conversations surrounding your sexual health, if you will. Please don't turn up pregnant and all these things. But, and even though you may have been aware of how, pregnancy comes along, but it was always kind of shared from the standpoint of being a deterrent. Don't. And I mean, obviously, I have children myself, and you want them to progress and lead their lives, and hopefully get married and then have a family. But we all know we're all sexual beings,
Mhm.
and it's really important to understand that side, because a lot of times you have all these different hormonal things going on and you don't even know what does this all mean. So tell me how you decided to go down this pathway and decide to make this the subject matter of your book.
Well, I think I need to digress and go back like 30 years. 30 years ago, I started what it was called the Inside Out Makeover. And I had numerous conversations with women, and this would always come up. But I didn't do anything about it. We just talked about it. We would provide resources. And then as a professor, you listen a lot to your students too. You listen to what they talk about. And then just in girlfriend circles, you have girlfriends, you talk about things. And so I think the basis just came from a collection of wanting to know, well, how do you succeed? What is it that you did? What was in your background? What did your mother teach you? Or what didn't she tell you? And like you were saying about your mother being a nurse practitioner, my mother was an OBGYN nurse. And like I stated before, I knew the function of the body, but we didn't have discussions about when you get married, well, I'll just be very frank, how to have an orgasm. That wasn't discussed. And,
Right.
how do I please my husband? I didn't know anything about that. And how is he to please me? Um, Very simplistic. Men are simplistic. I'll just be very pointed here. Men are so simplistic is that men are very visual and men want sex. Women, we go around Little John's barn. We want to feel secure, and we want you to talk to us and move us to that
Starts
sexual
up here.
thing. It starts in the mind. It does. It starts in the morning when you have a conversation with your boyfriend, your spouse, whomever. It starts in the morning. How you talk to me, right? But men, they can look at you and say, "I want to have sex," and women don't get that. They don't get that. Men are designed differently, and when we learn that they're designed differently, our lives will be so much easier. And when men learn about women, because the next book that's coming out is what he didn't tell you. I
Ooh.
want to know how men got to to manhood, and what was taught to them about how to uh, court their not only court their girlfriend, but court their spouse. So there's a lot of things that we have to learn in relationships, and it's an ongoing process. So going back to why I wanted to know what other women did. We don't have the conversations. We don't talk to one another. We look at magazines, we listen to podcasts, we watch movies, and well, let's be frank, some women, some men watch porn. If that what rocks your boat, that's fine. I have no judgment on that, but that is not real. That is not going to foster an everyday relationship. And if you're trying to act out those porn things in your bedroom, they may work for a while, but I'm going to tell you, they're not going to be something that's going to be long lasting in your
Or
relationship.
fulfilling.
You need to know how it works. And I'll say to the church, it's great. The church has marriage classes, they have single classes, but there's nothing that gets down to the nitty gritty for the questions that the women had in the book and the stories that they told. Because this is what I can tell you, is that there is a major theme, is that I didn't have the confidence. Nobody told me what I know now. I wish I knew then.
Mm.
My circumstances might have been different. So they share a plethora of information, and it's gut wrenching, but it's heartwarming, because in the end, no matter what came into their lives, they learned from the process. And that's why I selected women 45 and beyond, because by now you've had some life experiences, right? So you were able to tell this story of who you are and how you were raised and who raised you, and what era you were raised in. And you could clearly see it runs the gamut. Whether they're married, they're single, they're straight, they're gay, it's in the book, and they tell their story. And I think every woman will be able to find herself or someone she knows in the book.
I love that. And a couple of things that you hit on. My mom always wanted to make sure that she shared with us about, how you take care of yourself, from the time we had periods, and, the self-awareness of making sure, number one, that no one touched you in your private places, that kind of thing, which, obviously we got that. But then it was also, I can remember this is, a friend of mine told me that if you, how your parents knew if you were masturbating is if you would go cross-eyed. And I, growing up as a child, had a lazy eye. And so I would always have, and I remember telling my friends this because they would be like, on the playground, and they was like, I'm like, I was born like this. I had a lazy eye, but it's things like that. I can laugh at it now, but it was like really, it was something that I can remember that stood out, and I felt different because of it, not just because of the aesthetic, but then also the connotation that came behind it. And then I was just like, but I also wanted to know, well, what is that? What does it mean if you touch yourself? Or what does it mean if you feel good when you touch yourself? All of those things. And those are not necessarily conversations that I can remember or recall that were easy, not only to have with your parent, but even someone that you considered a friend, because you didn't want to be ostracized or looked at differently. When now, as an adult, I realize we all have these questions, and we all want to know, what's this, or what's this I'm feeling, or what is it that I'm not feeling that maybe someone else is. I can remember um, in my 20s having conversations. Obviously, I was a mom and a wife at that point, but having conversations with my girlfriends, and really, I knew what an orgasm was, but wasn't sure that I had even experienced that. So really being able to open up and have conversations that are, and I'll say this quite frankly, in our culture is seen sometimes as being taboo. And
Yeah.
so I'm just so thankful that we have the opportunity to have a guide and a book that addresses these concerns, and it comes involving stories from real people,
So
definitely.
you said something, and you talked about, and what is really outlined in the book is it is a starting point. It is a jumping off point to have conversations, to be like, I am not alone. Oh my goodness. This happened to me. Well, when we look at how we are socialized, and you were saying that one, I don't want to get the stories mixed up, but there's so many stories that are so valuable. They're so valuable where, I don't want you to be fast like that girl down the street,
Mm,
or mother did not tell her about her period, and, she thought she was dying. Well, young men are socialized. It's okay to touch themselves, basically to masturbate. Women, we never hear about self pleasure. We
mm,
don't talk about it. It is taboo, as you stated. And so I wanted to get it out there. I needed to get it out there because I certainly, you're not going to ask your mom about, well, what about oral sex? And as in the book, the women were very explicit. They said, I didn't want to ask my mom about how to do a blowjob. I mean, and
right.
no one does. But where do you get this information? And as one woman told her story, she learned from men. Men taught her because she didn't learn from anybody else. It was her her sexual partners that taught her that. And the whole book isn't just about sex, but we are sexual beings. This is where we are. This is where we live. So, we talked about spiritual health. We talked about health. We talked about friends, losing friends, gaining friends. What happens? The women were very explicit in what they discussed. And I am a woman. And what makes me special? And what legacy will I leave? When I asked women what was their legacy, I kind of got a dumbfounded response. It was like, well, we'll leave some money. That's your legacy? I know. And so as I would go through a conversation with them, they began to think about what is the legacy they would leave. So what I did was, well, who was your childhood hero?
Mm,
And then they would tell me. And then I was like, what do you have in common with your childhood hero? And one of the things the women all said was they were smart. Women seeing that they were smart and they wanted to be like them. So when I used that and to get them to think about all the things that they do on a daily basis, all the talents and gifts that they have that they've bestowed on the world, they began to see their legacy a little different. There was one woman that really, they all touched my heart, but one story stands out for me. Once we got talking about legacy, she remembered when she was a kid going to the bookmobile. And there was a gentleman that brought these books into the community. And she would be the first in line and get 4 or 5 books. And she said if she could just be a smidget like him, she had done something. So he inspired her to leave a legacy of trying to help families. So, I mean, it just runs the gamut. I had such a wonderful time. Each story inspired me and made me more confident and be grateful for the gifts that God has given me to bring to the world. You can have education all day, but if you're not going to use it in a way to lift as you climb, it's
mm,
almost like, what did you get it for? And
right.
so I want women to help each other, to lift as they climb, to look at women in their, women out, and you never know who's having a good day, a bad day, or what.
That's true.
So I get excited about this. This was fun, and I'm just really happy to bring it to the forefront, and let's have a conversation. Everyday people.
I love that. And those conversations, even though sometimes they may seem difficult depending on the subject matter or even who you're talking to, they're so pointed and so necessary because I know for me as a child, I used to sit around while my aunts and my mom or her girlfriends would talk and kind of sit off to the side so I could hear all the salacious, if you will. But I mean, I have to tell you, I learned a lot through listening to those conversations, even whether they knew I was listening or not. And those kind of things stuck out to me. And I think about that now, even when I sit with my girlfriends and have a good kiki and think about especially those that have been married or in long-term relationships and you're all these subject matter, it plays a part as well. And a lot of times you just want to know you're not the only one, or you want to know that if in fact you come across something and you haven't really been able to determine an answer for it or a solution or whatever it is, that you can kind of bounce things off of someone in a non-judgment zone, if you will, and know that you're not going to be perceived as some pariah or something because you have this question about what's going on, whether it's with you or your partner or what have you. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you is, as you sat down and you had these group chats or these individual one-on-ones, um, when you wanted to start this conversation, I mean, obviously, I'm sure that the participants and the people that are featured in the book knew that they would be. But how do you put that person at ease when you want to enter into this conversation or to get that additional information from them?
Oh, it's very interesting because I had to take everybody on an individual basis. Some were very difficult to get started. So we talked about the weather or how they were, or what was going on in their life. And sometimes it took a minute to get started. But the women in the Sif and Gab, all it took was a glass of wine and some wonderful treats and things. It's just like anything else. You ease into something. You get to know, you create a rapport. Even if I did not know you, we have about 5 to 10 seconds to create a rapport. And one thing I did share is you will never be revealed who you are. I will keep your information as private as possible. And so that began to let women feel a little more at ease. But once we got talking, everything changed. Once we got into the conversation and we were just like old friends, it changed. There's one conversation in the book where I said, what are some of the things that your mother didn't tell me? And she said, "Are you ready for this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready." She said, "My mother never told me that I was going to get gray pubic hair." And I want women to think about this. How often is that told to you, that if you're going to get gray hair,
Right. It's
you're going to get
everywhere.
gray hair? And so she called her friend up and her friend said, "Really?" And so basically what she told her, I was, as I remember, it was either to shave it off, cut it off, dye it, or wax it off. And she finally came to a decision on what she was going to do, but little things like that. Or she said, "I wish my mother would have told me that as I get older, that my breasts were going to be like two children fighting under a blanket, bumbling around fighting under a blanket, that you're going to get creases between your breast." And, just little things like that, that don't sound really important, but when you're by yourself, it's like, "Oh my gosh, I got gray hair."
Right.
Oh, and who would want to look at that, right? Men, different thing, but women, that was something that was very important to her and probably very important to a lot of women. But where are you going to discuss that?
Right. Right.
Yes. Where are you going to discuss that?
I tend to think that I'm pretty open and I'm willing, especially if I have a glass of wine in hand. But it's interesting in the dynamic of a lot of my girlfriend groups when we're sitting there and we'll be talking. And, it used to be kind of a perceived thing that only guys talked about sex. But, women, we talk about sex as well. And so I know when we're sitting around and it may be something that we saw on television or we heard in the news that kind of spawned the conversation. And I find that it's really interesting because even now I'm 45, almost 46 years old, and there'll be someone that says something in our friend group, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're sharing. And I'm happy for it, even though it may have taken me off, kind of like, oh, I didn't know we were going to go there, but I'm always appreciative of those conversations because again, it lets you know that you're not the only one that may, whether you've had the question or you wanted to discuss the topic or the subject matter, but also it also makes you feel, it normalizes things. And
Exactly.
it takes that kind of taboo-ness, if you will, if that's even a word, out of it. And it makes everyone, even though it's a subject matter that maybe not everybody likes to discuss or wants to discuss openly, but it all makes it an even playing field, if you will. And I kind of find myself being back in those moments when I was a little girl and I'm listening to my aunties and my mom's girlfriends discussing things. And now, as a full adult woman and mother and wife, and I recognize that, oh, there was some value in what they were saying back then. And I appreciate it. I appreciate being able to know that I have, girlfriends to bounce things off of, but it gives that sense of normalcy that, maybe the feelings that you're having or not having, it's okay to have, and help you walk through that. And so,
Exactly, exactly. And one of the things is when you're listening to stories, the first thing I say is there is no judgment here. Who am I to judge? I don't judge. I'm trying to elicit your information so that you can help somebody else. This book is written to help women, period, to see themselves, to enrich themselves, and to ensure that they have a means, that these are women that look just like me, that live lives just like me, that have mothers, grandmothers, aunties, friends in their lives. And there was one person in the book that is just like you, that would sit off to the side and listen to her mother and her grandmother in the process talk about, cooking and people at church and what they were wearing. And so I made sure that I told women that there's no judgment here. And not only you can't have that come out of your mouth and then act in a different way with your body, language, or your voice. It had to be congruent. They need to feel safe
safe.
and be in a safe place that they would be able to share that information. And I worked on it. Even when I was in a conversation, a phone conversation, I would get myself ready to have the conversation, because when you begin to ask a woman about sex, you're going to have a different tone. And so it was more of a quiet tone. And I would wait as long as it took for them to share the information with me. So it taught me a lot about, well, I always knew about tone, because I can say, I love you. Do you really? Or I love you. And I used to teach that with my students, and like, they would be in class and I said, you have to be cognizant of the way your words come across. And I always use this little line from school days where the guys go into the KFC and the woman's on the counter and she's saying, can I help you? Welcome to Kentucky Fried Chicken. I always would say to myself, I don't want any chicken here, because you're not enthused about your chicken. I certainly don't want to eat
Right.
it. Or you say, welcome to Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'm so pleased that you're here. Can I take your order, please? With some energy.
Right.
And they would always crack up about that. But that's real, because they were going into human services and public health. And if you don't know how to talk to your clients, their clients have a PhD in reading people. People can read if you're real or not. And so I believe that even though I'm talking to you over the phone, I have to have a tone, a quality in my tone that you know that I care. And that comes with time and it comes with experience. And, if you're monotone, I really don't know what's going on with you. I don't know what you feel. But when you're talking about things like your health and friendship and relationships and sex and just, how did you get here, your success, people want to know you care. And when you care, they'll care right back. So,
Oh, for sure. For sure.
yes.
And I mean, that's evident in even our relationship. I think about when we first met and our first connection was over the phone. And you're absolutely right. That tone resonates. And again, anybody that knows me knows I've shared this with them. I couldn't wait to see you on that following Monday when you were coming to start. So just for those who don't know, Pamela and I used to work together at an institution of higher learning, and part of her onboarding process, I was kind of in charge of that. And I was excited. I love to reach out and connect with people and know who you're going to be working with. And so I was in for quite the treat when I called Pamela to do my onboarding spiel and find out a little bit about her and make sure that, her accommodations and office was set up for her to start working the following week. And boy, was I in for a treat. I didn't want to get off the phone. I was
I
so
didn't care.
excited to know. And then part of it, I was excited to know that there was someone who looked like me that I would later find that I would constantly try to align myself with, was coming and served as my mentor and definitely my friend and big sister. And so, with that being said, I was excited because you set that tone. And in turn, like you always tell me, you give back what you pull in. And so
Absolutely.
that has been a back and forth tennis
Yes.
match that I love that we have back and forth.
Yeah.
And you're
And
absolutely correct.
I want to say something to that because a lot of times when people say I had a mentor, let me tell you something. As much as I could give Cheryl, Cheryl could give back to me. There was things that I didn't know that Cheryl would teach me. And so it is people come into your life for, I always believe, these two reasons: to get a lesson, to give a lesson, to get a lesson, or both. And so it was a reciprocal a relationship, and still is. I adore this woman. This woman, it was so funny. We were in another, we were in another state, and we were actually at a conference. I'll just call it a conference. And I would watch her, and I told her she knows how to work a room. And most people would think that meant something negative. It doesn't. When you see her remembering about individuals, who they are, their children, and when she would approach a person, it didn't matter if they were the CEO, the president of the university, or whether they were some staff member who was working at the event. She spoke to them, Cheryl spoke to them with the same confidence, the same tone, and the same importance. And when people know you care, they will care back. And everybody loved Cheryl. So, this is not a one-sided deal. This lady, let me tell you, she set me straight in many things. No, Pamela, you're going to do this. And I was like, what, Cheryl? And so she kept me on the up and up in a way that kept my information sound and very solid. She showed me things that, it's like when you go into any institution here, and I think I said this last time when we discussed, oh, you have your handbook and all these things, but the handbook doesn't really teach you about the culture. And Cheryl clearly taught me about the culture. And for that, I'm grateful. And our friendship has just been as strong as it was that first day we talked. And we say if we don't talk for 2 weeks, we can always pick back up.
Right where we left off. Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the beauty of that, and that's also the beauty that definitely is being conveyed through your book is that connectivity and the need to connect. There's so many people, and more prevalent now than ever because of the pandemic. You realize how important it is to have that human connection. And I mean, obviously, even I would love to be doing this in person with you, but I'm so thankful that we have this virtual medium to use. And I feel that warmth and I feel that love. And, I recognize that there are a lot of people that didn't have that to begin with,
Mm.
BC, before COVID. And now we're in the midst of this pandemic that has stretched on far longer than anybody could possibly imagine. And I feel that, there are people that are sitting in those silos, if you will, by themselves, and you worry and you wonder. And I can honestly say, if I'm going to be sequestered somewhere, I definitely want to make sure that I have something good to read, a good glass of wine, and definitely a good friend that you can connect with and, you know, feel human again, if you will.
Exactly. It was so funny. One reader, she said, I need my book ASAP. And she got her book ASAP. She started reading the book and she said, oh my gosh, Pamela, I got to get this for my daughter. My daughter needs this book because honestly, you can find yourself in this book and some of the things and decisions you've made in life, whether it's with technology. There's one group where one woman talks about technology, how it was dividing their family basically, and they had to have a no technology day
Mm,
because it does.
yes.
It ran the gamut in here, what we discussed. And I am very, very grateful to every woman that took her time to actually, you know, pay it forward for someone else because as you will read, not only do they tell their story, but they also give advice. And that's really what it's about. What would you tell a younger woman? And they for sure tell a younger woman. And one of the main focal points was this: know who you are, value yourself, have confidence in yourself, and they tell how to do it. And so it was an honor for me to be able to take in those stories and put them back out because we have a responsibility. And I'm going to say it again: lift as we climb. What is the, I don't get, if I succeed, then you have to succeed too, because I'm reaching back and I'm pulling you up. And if I fail to do that, you know what? How far can you climb up the ladder? You can climb up the ladder only so far, but the ladder stops at some point.
Right.
What goes up
Must
comes down.
come down. Yeah.
And so if you have people holding you up because you held them up, we don't get through this life by ourselves. We really don't. And so this is something that women can take hold of, discuss. I know there's been discussion about book clubs around this book. Women are excited, and this is a vehicle for them to share, maybe with their daughter. And that's the aim. We've got to talk more than function. Well, what am I supposed to be doing as a wife? What am I supposed to be doing as a friend? Wonder if, you know, I have a friend and I no longer, that friend isn't in my life. Well, like one person put it in the book, was that person came into your life for that moment, and where you were at that time is where you needed them to be. And they fostered all the things that were great and wonderful with you at that time. And then they may be in your life for a year, a month, a day, whatever it may be. But now you're at some other place. And one woman cleverly said that sometimes you outgrow relationships, and that's okay. Not be mad at people, just say, I'm grateful that they were in my life. They taught me a lot. Focus on that. What did they teach you? What did you get? What did you help them with? And now you're in another chapter of your life. So you be grateful for where you have been, where it has gotten you to today. And when you have gratitude, it changes everything. It changes your life.
It definitely does. I think when you just said gratitude, it makes me think about when you and I were at another conference. We hang out a lot. And we met Kim Coles, and she
Oh,
was covering, it was part of the San Diego Women's Week, and she had her gratitude journal. And up until that point, I mean, I would journal, but I hadn't thought about specifically journaling about gratitude. And let's face it, gratitude fosters so much. I mean, last week I focused on gratitude because it was Thanksgiving, but I try to live a life of gratitude every day. And I mean, sometimes we have to remind ourselves. And so what I do is through my journaling, I get those feelings out. And I mean, there's oftentimes that maybe you can't talk, or maybe something that you're not ready to discuss openly, whether it's an issue with a friend, like you were saying, or just maybe something that's going on in your professional or personal life, whatever it is. But I love coming back. And
yes.
whether it's a week or a month or a year later, and reading where I was. And, it's interesting. Facebook has and Instagram has a way of showing you that with the memories that come back. And I'm like, what's so funny for me? And I noticed this. I must have a season for hairdos because I noticed the same time periods. And each year I'm kind of, and I'm known for switching, but I noticed that I'm kind of switching. So I wonder how that plays into my cosmos, if you will. But I love having those reminders. And also, not only is it a reminder of that memory, but also it shows my growth, or
Yes.
it shows where there's been lack of growth. And I have to really assess that and decide how I'm going to navigate further towards growth and towards, you know, putting those types of moments behind me and just really honoring the journey that I'm on, but also moving towards a higher plane, if you will. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Life is very short, and we have an opportunity to be grateful. I always would say to my kids, if you're not grateful in little, you know, how are you going to be grateful in much? You have to learn to smell the roses, so to speak, and look out at the sky and just little things that are around you that we take so much for granted. And if you have a friend, and if you have someone in your life and someone that will lift you up, and sometimes people don't have that, well, that's what this book is meant to do. This is your friend, and your friend is going to lift you up. And no matter how you started, whether you were in foster care, we have someone who was in foster care and they said their legacy was their parents fighting or their father was an alcoholic. But again, it is not how you start this. It is how you finish. And and one day I'll write my own story. And I'm grateful for everything that happened to me because it has made me who I am today. We sometimes can say, well, this was bad, this happened, this and this and this. Yes, sometimes bad things do happen to good people. But you know what? You take that and you try to look for the silver lining. Okay, what did I learn from this?
mm,
What can I change? Because we can look out at other people, but you know what? We had a part in this. What were some of the decisions that I brought from my past into the present? And that gives me this ability to think about one of the stories where one woman, her mother told her that men are dogs, they're no good. And she brought her past story into teaching her daughters. And her daughters didn't believe, didn't trust men. And you know what? Whatever, and I always say this, you know what? If you're looking for Mr. Good Bar in the garbage, you're not, you may get a half-eaten Good Bar or one with maggots on it or whatever. I mean, come on, women. We have to think about what we are doing. If you want Mr. Million Dollar and he's good looking and he's handsome and everything, what do you present yourself as? We're
mm,
always pointing the finger. We have to really be thinking about how do we handle our own life? How do we view ourselves? It starts with me. I can't even worry about you. I have to get my act together. I have to have a sense of who I am in this world. What are my gifts? What do I bring to the world? What is my purpose? And when you start working on that, everything else will fall in place. It's just kind of like how I met my present husband. I wasn't looking for him, I wasn't looking for anybody. And God placed him in my life. I was sitting on the couch minding my own business. And he was like, oh, I'd like to buy some CDs. And I was like, I'm not the CD lady. She's over there. Yeah. So I got up and it was so funny, and it was at a jazz concert to see Joaquin Joyner, and I actually had a conversation with him to tell him, "You're the reason why I met my husband." And so I told his wife, I said, "Oh, this gentleman would like to buy some CDs," and he bought some CDs, and I moved back because I didn't want anybody else thinking I was selling CDs, and our conversation started from there. But I wasn't looking. And I had been working on myself. And I will be clear with you, whatever happened to you, your mother, your grandmother, that was their experience. If you're not careful, you will bring those experiences into your present relationship and ruin it. So you have to let your past and your luggage go. Let it go, clean it out, throw it away. How do you do that? Well, first, awareness. And if you can't do it alone, get some help. It's okay to ask for help. And that's expressed in the book. You are
mm,
not alone. We all need help. We cannot navigate this life by ourselves. We need our BFFs, we need our friends, we need professional help. We need all the things that we can get, and especially in a time like this. That's why we're going to encourage. There's nothing wrong with getting help. When I get help, I can see myself clearer because, sometimes you can't see yourself.
Right.
You project out to the world. We wear a billboard on our head. Are we thirsty? Are we grateful? Who are we? And God created us. He created us as a special being, and we have gifts. And it's time right now. It's time right now to see what those gifts are. Women are amazing.
Yes,
We
we
run
are.
this world. We run this world. We just don't know we run this world. So I'm up here trying to preach, and so
Well,
I get.
I mean, this is the time, and I definitely want to make sure that people are aware of how they can acquire a copy, and so I'll let you speak to that.
Well, right now, starting next week, it will go on pre-sale at Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all booksellers. It will be available to them online at booksellers. And the pre-sale basically is, who's interested in this book. And say, for instance, Amazon, if there's a lot of people that are interested, they will put it in their warehouse and they will send it to you. But then there's another option. And the other option right now is what is happening. You can actually go to www.PamelaHardy-Shepard.com and order your book. Now, the difference is if you order from Amazon, you will not get a signed copy. But if you order from my website at this time, I will sign your book and I will sign something to you and I will put it in the mail and mail it to you directly.
And I know this wholeheartedly. I know you guys may not be able to see that, but I have my signed copy here from Pamela. I feel so incredibly special. And everything that you've said today has resonated, and it's screaming in the back. I always feel like I get such good nuggets from you every time that we connect or and talk. But I won't read what she wrote to me in here, but it just is a reminder to me that um, you have a special place with everyone, no matter good, bad, or indifferent. You even people who don't like you, you have a special place in their heart somewhere. I don't know how down to the bottom it is, but it's there. And I say that to say, when you have someone who believes in you and who sees you, it's just it's a reminder. It's a reminder that you want to keep trying, and failure. Sometimes you learn from those mistakes, and I can honestly say that, and I tell Pamela this all the time when we were working together. There were times that I wanted to give up, whether it was related to my graduate program or things that were going on in my personal life or even professionally, and I would go in her office and, she had all of her degrees on the wall, and it was a reminder to me that she was able to do it. And I know some of her story, and I can't wait to when that book comes out. But it was a reminder to me to keep going, and that this too shall pass, and that there is a higher plane. And in those moments, whether you were there physically or not, your presence was. And it was a reminder to me to keep going and to keep striving and to really recognize also that I have two children that are at home and that are watching me and watching how I navigate. And so, if to me as a mother, that is the most it's sometimes it's gut wrenching, but it's also a motivating factor because you recognize that those children are depending on you, and not just depending on you for their day-to-day living, but also depending on you how you navigate so that they know that they too can do the same, no matter what bump is in the road. And so I can't thank you enough for being that example and for reaching out your hand and helping me climb upward. I really, really appreciate you.
You're so welcome, and I appreciate you. And if I could just leave one last thing, and you made me think about it, and it was this when you were talking about your children. I have two daughters and a son. And the thing that you instill into your children, or they may be someone else's children, will never come back void. You know, God's word said it doesn't come back void, right? His word doesn't come back. So whatever you instill in them, at this point in my life, my daughters are telling me, just like you're telling me, Pamela, you can do this. When you invest in people, they invest in you back.
Mm,
Don't ever forget that. And even if they are not, say, for instance, they're not your friend or they don't like you, guess what? That also helps you too, because
that's
there's
true.
something in you that they see that maybe, they want to be like. Instead of being able to tell you that they love what you do, they may be your greatest critic. However, your greatest critic will also push you forward too. So the
Absolutely.
good,
Those
bad.
were good, again, good nuggets. I love this. Well, as we're coming to a close, I want to give you an opportunity to not only tell people how they can get in contact with you and how to find your website, the book again, because I'm telling you, this is definitely a read that will be hard to put down. I was like nodding off last night, but I want to give you the floor and the opportunity to talk about what she didn't tell you and
Well,
how to find what she didn't tell you, I should say.
I would just say right now, if you really want the book, my website would be the best way to get the book. It will not be officially in the store after pre-sale. Pre-sale has to go for a certain period of time, but on January the 12th, for sure, you will see it in Amazon. But the pre-sale gives you an opportunity to pre-order your book, and on January 12th. So if you want your book during the holidays, then the best way is through me. And I have sent out numerous books and numerous
I
books. And
got mine.
so
And I think
I
this
just
is a
wanted,
wonderful holiday gift. It really
it
is.
is,
It's the gift that obviously I'm an avid reader, but it's a gift that is packed full of wonderful stories, but also, like you said, great advice. And let's face it, we need that right now, especially as we continue to navigate through certain waters of this pandemic and other things, social unrest. We have a political, um, we won't even go into that,
no,
but
we'll go
yeah.
there today.
So, with all of that being said, Pamela, I am so thankful to have you on my platform. I'm incredibly proud of this work. It's amazing. People need to go ahead, order from the website. I'd say that because you'll definitely want to get this in your hand. And that's www.PamelaHardy-Shepard.com. She also has a presence on social media on Instagram. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's under Hardy Shepherd
Yes.
on Instagram. And if you can't find her, come to me because it'll be on my also on my website. I'll make sure that you have links so that you can find out more of what Dr. Pamela Hardy-Shepard is doing. And I can't wait to hear what the new book, what he didn't tell you, is all about. So definitely, we have lots to look forward to.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
I want to
Thank,
wish you a happy, happy holiday. Um,
thank you. Same
and
to you,
thank
Carol.
you. Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Thank you.
Uh,
Have a
well,
wonderful.
I want to give you an opportunity before we leave as well, is if there's anybody that you would like to acknowledge that have been there through this process of you getting this great workout to all of us.
Yes. Funny. My husband, my husband, Melvin Shepherd has been just an amazing advocate of what I was doing. It's like, oh, honey, come look at this. Can you read this? What is that? Does that make? And I know he was probably like, oh my goodness. But he's been an advocate. My daughters, Melissa and Holly, my son, Michael, and my daughter-in-law, Ratima, you, Cheryl, everyone has been wonderful, but these are the people that I named have been closely, you know, just very supportive from the ground up. Even when I told him I'm going to write a book, and the encouragement was enormous. So, you can't navigate this life alone. It does take a village. And whether it's a village of words and acts or deeds, it takes a village. You are not doing this by yourself. This book is dedicated to all women. It is dedicated to those who have come before me and those who will come behind me. So, no, I can't navigate this life alone.
Thank you. So no better words than to end on. And as I always say, it is truly all about the experiences. And more importantly, you want to make sure that you're doing your part with the gifts that are bestowed upon you to not only elevate yourself, but to elevate others. So a going theme is lifting as we climb, but also taking care of each other, especially during this time. But more importantly, in order to take care of each other, you have to take care of yourself. So, with that being said, I hope you all have an experiential filled week. And definitely make sure you go to www.PamelaHardy-Shepard.com, get your copy. I'm telling you, you'll be so pleased. And I look forward to having Pamela come back when she has her next book out. So definitely have lots to look forward to.
Thank you.
Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Cheryl.